Leafy is the true sociopath of the internet. He uses people left and right. He uses YouTube. He's used me.
Leafy is a strange guy. He is an odd fella. He's a peculiar specimen, okay? He's an oddball, and that's fine, but I want to talk about him today because I think the fact that he's so weird makes him very interesting, and he's recently decided to leave the internet entirely, and I want to go over why he did that, what's next for him, and what to expect. Will Leafy ever return to the internet? Well, let's see. I think if there was ever a time to confidently claim that Leafy career is over, it probably would be now. And that's not a dig at him. I mean, I'm just looking at it factually. At this point, he really has nothing left in terms of a social media presence or a platform. I'm sure in his personal life, he's absolutely fine, and he's got a whole lot. He has a nice car, nice house, you know, probably worth at least $5 million. But the once unstoppable internet famous Leafy is long gone, and honestly, at this point, I don't think he's coming back. I'd break Leafy's career down into 3 big runs. You had his original blow-up that was from 2015 to around 2017. He had his big return run in 2020 when he came back to roast iDubbbz and then stuck around for about 6 months getting viral videos on Pokimane. Then this year when his Twitter got unbanned, he started going viral on Twitter and he got a Rumble deal and was streaming there. Now recently his Twitter got suspended yet again, and it's been a month since he streamed on Rumble, and I don't think he's coming back. And this is not just conspiratorial. He made an Instagram post that basically said what I'm saying. On September 21st, he said, "See you in 6 months to 5 years when I get unbanned on one of these websites again. Thank you for all the support and money." And I think at this point, it makes a lot of sense why he's tapping out. He's been at the game for about 7+ years, probably even longer if you want to count his pre-blow-up content, but he's seriously been viral and famous for almost like 9-8 years maybe. And when he came back to the internet and Twitter, it was just mostly, I can assume, for his own personal enjoyment. I mean, he probably had fun getting a kick out of these stupid tweets he was making, and I have to imagine that a big part of him leaving is because, oh, he got banned on Twitter and he's only really doing this to have fun. Yeah, sure, he gets a lot of money on Rumble and the donations are cool, but he's been set for like ever at this point. I'm pretty sure Keemstar leaked it on an old podcast that at Leafy's peak during the best months of his career in 2016, he had like a few months where he was making upwards of 200K, which is ridiculous. Like, that means probably in 2016 he made more than $2.5 million, and that's just in ad revenue. We're not factoring in sponsorships or merchandise sales or anything else for that matter. So he's definitely been set for a while. I don't think there was a financial incentive for him to return to the internet. I do think that at the end of the day, he just wanted to have fun for one last hurrah. I'm pretty sure he also mentioned on a podcast like a while ago that he made so much money doing stock market stuff after he got banned on YouTube in 2020. So there truly was no major financial incentive for him to come back to the internet. I mean, sure, you know, if you want to get some extra lunch money, you can dip your toes in the water of the internet culture once again, but there's also some inherent risks to doing that, especially when you're somebody as controversial as Leafy is here. I mean, dude, people will dox you, people will swat you. Pretty sure he did get doxxed, or his phone number got leaked or something when he came back to streaming. I think at one point during one of his streams, his mom called him saying like, "Oh, Calvin, who are these people texting me?" And it's like, shit, how do you explain that to your mom? You know, that would be rough, especially when she probably doesn't think you do the YouTube thing anymore. I don't know. You know how they say never meet your heroes? Well, you know, Leafy was never my hero, but I did watch a fair amount of his content earlier on. Definitely in his 2020 return during the pandemic, he was making those Pokimane videos and I was eating them up. Well, this time around during Leafy's return to the internet, I did end up getting him to follow me on Twitter, and we had a few chats actually off camera. I had a call with him pretty late at night. At one point, it was about 30 minutes long, and I could tell that he was on drugs. I mean, he just seemed like he was geeking out, and that was sad to me. It's not a mystery that the guy does drugs. I mean, if you've watched his streams, you can kind of tell, like, he is all over the place. He doesn't really think before he says anything. A lot of the sentences he produces don't really sound like sentences, but rather just like strings of words, if that makes sense. I know that's like what a sentence is, but you get the idea. And from talking to him and seeing some of the, I guess we can call them more embarrassing moments of his streams where you can kind of just tell he needs to sleep, that he has some personal issues he has to deal with, and I think some time away from the internet, maybe just getting some help would be good. The dude had a DUI at one point, so if that's not telling that he needs help, I mean, go through the hours of stream footage that exists of him where you can just tell, like, this is a man who probably needs someone to check in on him. I mean, he could genuinely use an intervention. The problem, too, is what I'm I'm describing with Leafy is actually not very uncommon in the world of streaming. I mean, guys who sit in front of their computers for 10 plus hours a day in some cases are oftentimes not going to do it sober. They're going to take drugs, they're going to be drinking or smoking or something like that. And it can kind of create this vicious cycle where because you're under the influence of something, you maybe seem more energetic, more spazzy, more entertaining in front of a camera, or more interesting to watch. So you're going to get more viewers and therefore more donations and therefore more exposure. And you're going to want to replicate those results on like every stream. I mean, when you're coming back to the internet, you want every stream to top the last, right? And when you have donations saying, W Leafy, I love your energy, well, I mean, obviously he's going to look at that and take that as positive feedback, and he's going to keep doing it. I also think the declining interest with keeping up with the internet and streaming every day probably has to do with his age. Leafy's here is 28 years old now, and I think at a certain point when you're pushing 30, the internet becomes less and less interesting to you, and this whole culture of like, oh, WL streaming highlight probably can come across as pretty like infantile and pretty immature, and maybe he just wants something more, something bigger in life. Especially too because he was 21 when he peaked, and it can be kind of damaging to peak that hard, that young, you know? Like when you're 21 and you're getting $200,000 a month off of YouTube ad revenue because people like your content, they find you funny, and you're getting recognized in public, presumably. When you're 28 and you know you're never going to see that level of fame ever again, I can see why you'd probably just like want to walk away from it and move on with your life. And I don't want to psychoanalyze this guy or anything, but I know for most people, this is probably the time in their life where they're starting to seriously think about having a family and raising kids. Like I said, Leafy's going to be 29 years old next year. A lot of people, I feel like, get married around this age, maybe seriously start considering what your future is going to look like with a woman. Now, I do know that Leafy tweeted about having an ugly breakup earlier this year, girlfriend of 4 years or something, like keyed his car and I don't know, caught him cheating. So maybe he's not trying to get back in the dating game anytime soon. But hey, I mean, from a purely material standpoint, he has so much money, he could raise probably 5+ children easily without having to worry about the finances of that. So maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. Maybe he'll just, you know, be flying solo for the rest of his life, doing his drugs, and who knows, man. But hey, I'm just saying, if there was ever a time to do it, he's still relatively young. You know, it's not like he's in his mid-30s, mid-40s, or even mid-50s. He's got plenty of time. I mean, a lot of people look back and they say that they miss their 20s. Their 20s were the best years of their life, and Leafy is still in those years. So, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with that. It also does seem, and I notice this because I've been watching him forever, and it's not like that I'm trying to hyper-analyze this guy, but like, you know, when you watch a guy for 7+ years, you eventually start to notice when he changes and stuff. And I have to say, I haven't, which is kind of a problem. Like, he does seem like the exact same that he was in 2016. And I understand there's some novelty to, you know, sticking to your true self and staying to your ideals and stuff like that, but I do feel like you should kind of grow as a person from the age of 21 to 28. I mean, those are your formative years. These are the years that are going to help you grow into the man that you're eventually going to become. And I'm not talking about politics or anything, you know, I don't think that, you know, growing up necessarily means becoming woke or becoming liberal, because Leafy has never been either of those. But through watching the streams, it does really kind of just feel like he's the same guy he's always been. And I kind of wonder why that is. I mean, I have a few ideas. First of all is obviously drugs. I think drugs can stunt your growth and make you not really evolve as a person or grow because of the way that it affects your brain. But I also don't think that Leafy like really does anything. Like, he just kind of seems like a no life. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that contribute to that. You know, part of it could just be the nature of your job. You know, when you're streaming inside for like hours and hours a day, yeah, you're gonna have less time to be social, to be out in the world. But also when you're under the influence of any substance, you can't really be out in public or else you'll get arrested. But overall, I just don't know if Leafy's getting outside much or if he's doing really anything that challenges him, you know, develops his character at all. And it, you know, that's like fine for a short period of time. Maybe like a month you're just kind of being a hermit, or maybe even a few months you're being a hermit. But if it's like 7 years of doing that, I don't know. I mean, it's like you're basically kind of living like you're on house arrest. And I'm not even trying to be mean. I mean, this is something that I'm sure a lot of people faced during COVID, like, you know, making sure that they're getting outside and being social while the entire world was shut down. But it's also something that I experienced. You know, I'm trying to find the right balance between making these videos, streaming, getting out in the world, making sure that I'm meeting people, doing new things. But I guess for Leafy, it was just about like drugs, money, and fame, nothing else, which sounds cool, I guess, like on a movie poster or something, or like in a song. But when that's your actual life, it does kind of add up and can kind of lead you down a pathetic path. I think the other thing too that leads me to believe that he's like still mentally 21 is the fact that he's so clearly insecure about the exact same things that he used to be. And I'm not going after anybody for having insecurities. I obviously have insecurities. Everybody has insecurities, but I think as you get older and as you get more life experience behind you, you should be working to actively overcome your insecurities and working to deal with your insecurities, you know? If you remember 2016 at all, you'll definitely remember the whole hashtag no chin meme, where the meme was that Leafy is here didn't have a chin, which was started by iDubbbz in his content cop video on Leafy. And through his response, Leafy tried to make it seem so much like he wasn't insecure about his chin by bringing it up every 5 seconds, which did the opposite and just told everyone that, okay, yeah, you actually are insecure about that, which is, again, fine. It's fine to be insecure about the way you look. But the big irony was that Leafy was going after people and he would make fun of people based on the way they look or the way they dress or something like that, but in reality, he gets super defensive and he gets super wrapped up when someone does the same to him. All the while, he was denying it when it was so obviously true. And now he's 28 years old. You'd think he'd come out of his shell a little bit, but he's still super just insecure about the way he looks. Like, he doesn't show face cam on stream, which I guess you could argue is a privacy thing, but I mean, your Leafy is here. Like, everyone knows your name. Everyone knows what you look like. It's not really, I don't think that argument really works. But then eventually, as his numbers started to pick up again, and he was getting like 100,000 views per stream, he eventually face revealed on Twitter, got roasted to death. I even made a video talking about his new look. And since then, he's just distanced himself even further from the internet. So, I mean, it's very obvious that he's still very insecure about the way he looks, which is, I'm gonna be honest, not great. Especially when it seems like you've regressed a little bit. Like, he seems more insecure about it now than he did in 2016, which isn't good. You know, obviously you should be progressing, not regressing. Overall, I hope the guy gets help. He's clearly not living amazingly right now when it comes to just his health and his well-being. And Leafy, if you're watching this, I doubt you are. I messaged you on Discord a bit ago. I would like to talk to you again, just off camera. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to say a few words to you and maybe help you in the right direction. But for the rest of you, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you made it this far into the video and you haven't subscribed, what the hell is wrong with you? Subscribe if you're new and leave a like on this video. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you guys all in the next one. Goodbye.